It's Global Reports here on Liberty Television at our Kaduna studios once again after a 2-week break, and we're back in force. As usual, we follow the trending and most popular news stories from around the globe and also in Africa. This week, my guest is the renowned scholar, Professor Khalifa Dikwa. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you.
Once again.
Thank you very much.
First item this week we're looking at is this week the British Prime Minister, that's Theresa May, is on her first visit to Africa. Started off in South Africa on Monday and on Tuesday, and I believe today, as we speak, she's here in Nigeria. Can we just watch this short news report?
When is it today? This year.
Okay, we'll come to the news report later. My chaps have been able to locate it. Prof, what do you think of this visit by Prime Minister May?
Yes, quite frankly, this is a good one, and we predicted it in this forum. Last time, it was about 2 months ago, so we spoke about it, that after Brexit, after Trump's America, after Frexit, what I call Frexit French, and so on,
yeah.
I said Nigeria should put its acts together, because all these developed countries are going to come to Nigeria in order to get the support of the rest of Africa. And therefore, those countries feel threatened by the heavy presence of Chinese
Yes,
in terms of investment, road and belt. Exactly. These are concrete things that you can see in Djibouti, you can see in Kenya, you see the railway from Mombasa and so on. And the same thing is happening in Nigeria. And therefore, those countries now, is to me, I said the other time I was not happy with the ministers, because they were not proactive enough. Not proactive in the sense that by now we ought to have been part of BRICS. BRICS is for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. If South Africa is there, for goodness sake, Nigeria should have been there. Again, the second blunder that the cabinet did, it was just similar to what happened during Jonathan, when they went to Ethiopia for a meeting, and they did not remind him, and he missed the meeting. And today in this country of earth, we ought to have, since we are signing agreement with other countries, other unions like EU and so on, why not start with our own? That is the intra-African agreement that was then in Kigali. The most shocking thing is that, for goodness sake, in a diplomacy, it was very wrong for Nigeria to boycott it at all. It ought to have been there, Nigeria ought to have been there, even if signing it with conditions. A big country, a big economy like Nigeria should not have even boycotted, and nobody was rebuked for that. And this is the kind of laxity that we've been talking about. You have to be there. With this intra-African agreement that we can trade within Africa, then again now, since the British, your own people, decided to pull out of EU, then Africa too has the freedom now to renegotiate what we call the Commonwealth. Because all along it is lopsided in terms of markets.
What do you mean in relationship to the EU?
Exactly, because
yes,
if it could pull out of the entire bloc, Nigeria should lead other African countries to now deal with EU direct, then deal with Britain on a win-win basis.
Yeah.
So Britain, as a colonial power, had 58 years to make an impact. Now with the coming of China and other things are just coming up. The ideal thing for Britain is to compete with China and other forces. Nigeria should now feel free, invite other African countries that our mumu don't do. Our mumu don't do in the sense that it is enough. We had 58 years, we have not seen the basic infrastructure for our development. We couldn't get electricity, we couldn't get the support, and each time it was just lopsided. Again, European countries, British in particular, and so on, were receiving looted investments. And now, instead of now dictating to Nigeria It is now up to Africa now to ask Prime Minister Theresa May to respond to the issues of corruption, to the issues of looted funds that have not been returned 3.5 years after promising it to President Buhari.
Were they not? I thought they were returning some of the funds.
No, not a single kobo has come from Britain. That one that came, it was from Switzerland. That account, that Pari Pasu account that was created
as well, I think
under Abacha to execute the war in Liberia and Sierra Leone, that just to preempt the sanction from US or so. That was the account that was created to continue to bring peace to Nigeria, to Liberia and Sierra Leone. And since he's dead, people, those who came after it and attacked it, Abacha loot. It's unfortunate, but that was not so. Even the chief of army staff, the old one, General Bameyi, in his book that he launched in Abuja, he said that was nothing like Abacha loot. It was created in order to execute the peacekeeping operation in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and other places. Those who are calling Abacha loot will eventually one day be ashamed of it. Secondly, you see, I wrote this thing prior to her coming today on my Facebook, and it is being followed. All the details that Britain, France, America now are free to compete in Africa. No longer dictation, because they can. In the past, they used to dictate, and even African leaders were afraid to even stand up to the challenges of all these colonial powers. Now, with the dismantling of so many intelligence offices and so on, you know how now disorganized the CIA, MI5 and so on, be used and dumped. Those who were used and dumped were exposing virtually everything. It's no longer possible, in my mind, to use the intelligence behind the scene in order to pull a government simply because they wanted to do a deal with another country. Again, Nigeria and Africa should be free now to trade in currencies other than dollars. Dollars are virtually papers, not like pound and euro. They are not based on gold. Just
long abandoned the gold standard.
Exactly. Now Trump himself abandoned his main traditional allies like Britain, France, Germany, and so on. And it goes without saying that European Union no longer relies on America for anything in future. Even if tomorrow another president is elected, the cat is already out of the bag.
Let me come in.
Yes.
Interject. Back to Theresa May. She apparently said that Nigeria is home to the poorest. Sorry.
Yes.
Nigeria is home to the highest number of poor people in the world.
Yes.
And also stating that 87 million Nigerians live below the $1.9 a day basic level of survival, according to some institutions. Whilst Nigeria economically is thriving, what would you say to that?
And that is the truth. 87 million is on the lower side. It ought to be more than that. The poverty has been there for long. The money doesn't reach the people, and people are. This is the case with virtually all African countries with resources. You go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, gold, diamonds, and so on, but people are in poverty and wars. And those wars were created by the West itself.
Well, some of those are, what's the expression they use?
They always use ethno-religious flags in order to stage a war so that they come and lay hands on the resources. If now Boko Haram that we have now, if you just look at the scenario, you will see that anywhere there is a problem, it is either about farming, proxy wars, exactly, proxy wars. It is either where farming activity is going on or a place where there are solid minerals underground.
And we know northeast Nigeria.
Exactly, northeast Nigeria has oil. And the same basin from which oil was extracted in Niger, Cameroon, and Chad. Exactly. So this thing now, I just feel that Nigeria should now stand up. The ministers themselves should be proactive, not to wait for any president to come and say what he wants. You should be able to ask them questions to respond. What do you do with our relationship? Nigeria can say, okay, Francophone, we are no longer comfortable with the agreements within Commonwealth in the past. Let us sit down and review it in a win-win way. The same for Francophonie. French-speaking countries, they should also do it, the same thing. Now, France feels threatened because if Africans come together and then pull out of France, dump France, France will collapse. The same thing with Britain too. And therefore, poverty is there. So what did Britain do? The Britain ought to have named and shamed those who are stealing the resources rather than to allow them to put them, to stash them into British banks in order to boost their own economy. The game should change now. So,
well, it's difficult in Britain to stash anymore.
Exactly. And they are trying now. Yeah. They are really trying, even with the parliament. They are really trying to stop all this stashing from Africans. Exactly. Ibori. Daria, yes. And then what about the other one? Delta, right?
Delta, Ibori, yes.
James Ibori. They are doing their best. Now, to me, it is just a thing that we have it in hide. But in truth is that if both the media and the people of the West, Britain, France, are just eager to help based on what happened to the immigration crisis now all over Europe. Had Africa had the basic infrastructure, these immigrants shouldn't have gone. So they have learned their own lesson. They will see that Africa gets its act together. And it is a win-win. Now, they can only compete with Russia, China.
If you help sub-Saharan Africa, particularly, or the West does, then the problem of people needing to migrate. However, having said that, don't forget the people who end up migrating are not the people who need the money to migrate.
Exactly.
You don't see the people of the northeast of Nigeria in Libya and
you don't see
the boats. You see the wealthier people from southern Nigeria.
Funny enough, somebody will raise up to 1 million naira to go there.
To go there, yes, exactly.
This is very funny. 1 million is enough for you to have a capital to do business in Nigeria, but they just travel with this kind of mentality. Eventually die at sea or die in the Sahara desert and so on.
Is it not the old story?
It's the mindset. It's the mindset that they think anything about West is good, but the West is broke now, so they are also on their own. It's no longer the same thing.
So a lot of people in the West, particularly working people, are not very happy.
They are not happy, but they only accept immigrants who are professionals. But they reject the family members. They call them illegal migrants. So that is it. So it is high time now for Nigeria never to backtrack, to always lead other African countries, South Africa, Egypt, and so on, now to have an agenda for Africa to get the basic infrastructure. I say, if now a country like China has been able to do this, Britain, France, and others, they are also free to even overtake China, do better than China, let them compete in a win-win way. That is what I want to always emphasize.
But don't you think this thing should begin at home here in Nigeria? I mean, these figures we look at, that's 87 million, I'm sure it's quite correct, maybe more.
It should be more.
87 million Nigerians are living in...
If you are 200 million, to me it is, what is out of 200 million, to me even the rough number shouldn't have been lesser than 150 million, to goodness sake. It can't be less than 150 million. Because virtually everybody is poor. And imagine now that Brooks now, if for instance now this budget of a thing, 1 trillion, so then if you decide to say, let us have just 1 trillion out of all the trillions for the budget, 1 trillion, and then share it among Nigerians. So many Nigerians will have something to do with. And eventually all this insurgency, all this katakata will vamoose. And look at the leadership now, the leading, what do you call them, the class, the ruling class. Imagine a joke like the 18,000 as minimum wage. They have not been able to pay. They have not been able to pay.
Well,
and now
if you calculate that $1.9 a day, that works out at $19,930 at the exchange rate. It's just above the minimum.
For goodness sake.
It's not nothing.
It's nothing.
Can we, I'd like to move on, have a short discussion on
Yes.
the INEC situation.
All right.
Can we now, this week there's been a lot of controversy over the INEC budget
It's
for
now
the
143.
2019. Can we just watch a short report from Oak TV?
We didn't say the committee should straighten out anything. So you are putting words in our mouth. I must be very clear. Please, let's not be playing politics with issues. You should be honest with Nigerians. I made my point very clear that we asked them to look through this, not to straighten. It is when something is bent that you straighten. There is nothing bending here. So please, let's not also bring in sentiment into this subject matter. This is serious matter. This electioneering for 2019, and we are totally committed to that. Okay, what I have said very clearly is that based on the fact that the earlier submission they brought was 189, the totality, and we have resolved that we are going with what Mr. President requested, the 143, in his letter. This is unambiguous. And so what they brought, rather than us taking it and going to start taking all the time to go through, as you can see, it is tiny. Not everybody can even read it. So rather than delay, we have now said that to work, the essence of having a small number, even the committee, the essence of having the subcommittee on INEC is to enable us to work more assiduously rather than bring the entire Senate. Now to fast track further, we realize that if we are to go clause by clause, it may take us time. That's why we now have a subcommittee who will now work faster. And by tomorrow, we are convening back to look at what they have done. And if it is quite in order, the essence of this is to see, is it in order? If it's not in order, what is the issue? They will make that presentation and we'll take our decision by tomorrow. So I want to make it very clear, please.
It's very distinguished. Assuming the fast-track procedural process ends by tomorrow or next week latest, as the spokesman of the Senate, we send it to the National Assembly procedure sitting.
Well, remember the leadership have made it very clear. When this committee finishes its work and the report is ready, they will give you the next line of action. So until we get to the river, I think it is very difficult for me to start talking about crossing the bridge. So let us finish our work by tomorrow, get it ready, and then you will now hear from the leadership the next line of action.
With the last question from me, are you comfortable with the fact that this 143 billion will be varied from the 578 billion that the National Assembly appropriated to different?
Well, the issue is not comfortability or uncomfortability. The issue is for us to agree that yes, this request is a genuine request, which is required to enable us to conduct the 2019 election. And that we are totally convinced that yes, we need funding for the 2019 election. And so when we complete this process, whatever it is, at the end of the day, we will see the output. So I cannot sit down here and start conjecturing on what it will look like.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So that's the Prof. What do you
Yes.
say about the INEC?
INEC thing, I just think that people are trying to register, number one. Number two, there is a challenge in insurgency-prone areas. Many have not registered because they don't even know what to do with their lives. They wouldn't think of getting a PVC. And the governors and the elected officials, most of them were not helping matters. They ought to have been at the forefront to help them. They don't even help them with little things. And you can't imagine these people will be disfranchised from electing the leaders in January, something like that. So there must be a problem. And I know there is a problem there, unless INEC decides to do something extraordinary.
Yeah.
And that cannot be possible without complete security. Complete security, again, with ability to share intelligence. All these freed areas from Boko Haram and other insurgencies, all the localities, the local areas and so on, were not linked by telephone.
Yeah.
So when there is nothing like telephone, any abnormal movement, nobody can talk to the city. So returning of refugees to their abode is not enough without fixing telephony and ability just to communicate. This is very important because these boys from time to time, they just carry with machine, go and harass farmers and say, give us this thing and so on. There is a lot. I think INEC has a lot of things to do. Why didn't it start much earlier? 1 year ago, for instance, ought to have begun it. And
they're aware of the problem.
yes, I want them to build on what the former INEC under Professor Jega did. Yes, because if you put your heads together, let the chairman forget about his academia. Let him just come down to the level so that everybody will put heads together to do the right thing. And again, we heard about the parties now. PDP gave about 12 million for something like that. I find it very astonishing and stunning that if you want to serve your people and you want to run for president or governor, at least 11 million, where, for goodness sake, somebody with credibility, for instance, somebody who has just retired or a teacher, a class teacher and so on, will run. It is again about a little class of people who are just blocking everybody outside and for them to just recycle. And I think we have a problem now with the real constitution is that Nigerians should now say we are going to have referendum. We no go agree. And then we should also have the independent party so that candidates should stand independently for people to vote them right from councillorship up to the presidency. And I still have my reservations with this preparation, with this what is happening now. Quite frankly, I don't see it coming smoothly unless they sit up and work 24/7.
Okay, this is going to run. We'll discuss this again.
Yes.
Unfortunately, time is against us.
Yes.
Once again.
Arthur Brooks.
Our program is too short.
Correct. We have less than 30 minutes. I spoke about these things, a few of them, on my last appearance on NTA Network and Tuesday Live. Some of the things, I brought them out.
Yeah. So again, as I say, time is against us. Thank you very much, Professor
You're welcome.
Dikwa, to our cameraman and crew in the control room and the Global Reports production team. This is Arthur Brooks signing out, and we're back next week. No more breaks. Have a fantastic week.
Yes.
Keep watching Global Reports and Liberty TV.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much.